Good evening, this is Tokyo woodblock printmaker Dave Bull here in our Asakusa shop. There's no need for any kind of a long introduction this time. This video is a continuation of the one I presented a short time ago, showing you how we'll be making our Patreon chibis, the small prints that we will be sending to backers of our Patreon campaign. In the first video, I left off at the point where the carving on this key block was finished. And in this episode, we'll follow the next stage of making any traditional Japanese print, the process of separating the colors and preparing blocks to print them. Enough talk, let's get right to it. We start, of course, with that part of the process that always gives me the most mixed feelings. I know, putting black ink all over that beautifully carved piece of wood. Can't be helped, of course, that's why we're doing this. This is the very first impression, so we're not going to bother wasting a beautiful sheet of washi paper at this point. And what you're seeing is just copy paper. The purpose is to get a view of how the carving has turned out. There's almost certainly going to be small places that need to be carved and recarved and retouched, and this kind of cheap, quick impression will serve that purpose. I'm going to insert this previous clip here just to remind you how we make that transfer paper, the gampi sheet, laminated to a sheet of copy paper. I'm going to need 5 sheets of that, as you're now going to see. Three of the sheets are already done, as you can see, and I'm doing the 4th one now. Being very careful to get the paper exactly, perfectly in the corner. We don't want any distortion or any mistakes at all at this stage of the process. The next 2 steps here, coloring in the color zones and then getting these sheets pasted down onto new pieces of wood, all happen as quickly as possible and within a couple of hours. If we wait too long, if the weather changed, it became rainy or something, these sheets would expand a little bit and we'd be in real trouble when it came time to printing. So that although you can't see it in this video, these next 2 steps really do happen bang bang, one step right after the other. Do you see the difference in this second sheet? There's lines I've drawn on there. So we're not just using information transferred from the key block, we're adding more information. This is for a block that will produce shadows. And I've had to draw these lines in by hand because that information isn't contained in the key block. So here are the final 5 finished sheets. I'm making a last check here to make sure and try and catch all the little places that I missed when doing it earlier. A very important last step here. And here's the wood. We're going to use the back side of the key block for one of these faces and then both sides of each of 2 new pieces of wood. So altogether this print will be 3 blocks, 6 faces, and 6 printing passes, of course. I think that was all pretty self-explanatory, the 5 sheets getting pasted on blocks, and the final step here, just use a bit of moisture to peel off the unwanted paper at the back, leaving just the lines and a very, very thin bit of paper visible on the block. And you know what comes next, of course, getting busy with the carving. As I've mentioned before in these videos, it's roughly done in 3 stages, and we'll look at them here separately. This is the first step, going around all the outlines with my sharp knife. I don't do that stage 1, carving the lines on all 5 blocks first. I usually do 1 block at a time. So once the lines are cut on each block, I then switch to my wide chisels and bang away as much of the waste wood as we can. It's fun sometimes in the YouTube comments, there'll be people saying things like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how close you come to the lines while you're doing this." But it's important to get rid of as much wood as possible, you know. The less I leave behind at this stage, the less there is to do at the next stage. And I've had my share of accidents back in the early days, but these days it's pretty clear where I'm going with this thing. I shouldn't let you see this shot, should I? Look at this, a real carver's life. Email window open at the left and 2 telephones on the desk in front of me. And here's stage 3, using a series of bull-nose chisels, some very thin, some a bit wider, to clear away the waste between what was chiseled away and the carved lines. This is the most fun part for me, actually. Back in the early days I made many mistakes here, jamming it up to the lines and chipping them, but now it's the most fun stage for me, just getting a clean, clear, finished block. So here we are, the 6 faces, and they all have the design. Look at this, carved once, carved twice, carved 3 times, and no 4th, I'm sorry. So with the block set now ready, the next step is of course printing. Support for this campaign has been very gratifying, and we are going to have to make hundreds, literally hundreds of these small prints. But before we can dive in and start that job, we need to proof this block set and do a small test run. That'll be the topic of the third video in this series, and because I've actually already done that job, I did it last night after the other printers had gone home, the film is in the camera, so to speak, so stand by for that episode fairly soon. Thanks again everybody for watching. I hope somewhere along the line, some of the things we show in these videos can really be useful to people who are trying to make their own prints. Anyway, good night for now, and see you very soon.